Welcome to Biography Central. You are listening to Life of Sri Ramakrishna, a complete biography. Chapter 9. First Vision of the Divine Mother. Silently and secretly, they come into the world. Like a flash of lightning, survey it, and in the twinkling of an eye disappear. Few see them, fewer understand them, and still fewer follow their advice. This is the life history of most great men, prophets, seers, and incarnations, in all ages and in all climes. Buddha left behind him only a handful of followers, and today, after 25 centuries, 1/3 of the world pays him homage. Yet, why should we wonder at the world's lack of comprehension? How can we understand them with our limited vision? The strong alone can understand strength. It is not the barn door fowl, but the elephant that understands a lion. Only grandeur appreciates grandeur, and God realizes God. Though the real Krishna and Buddha are in us, it is not until we realize that fact that we can envisage a Buddha or a Krishna. But let the perception come that liberation or bondage, virtue or vice, knowledge or ignorance, beauty or ugliness, truth or falsehood, pleasure or pain, and all the other pairs of opposites which seem so real to us are nothing but the creation of the mind, the obverse and reverse of the same coin, and a change will be made in the angle of vision, a shifting of the mental focus, and a whole series of phenomena, father, mother, home, me and mine, will vanish to give place to another series of phenomena, another creation and another world to which the great ones have easy access, and where they would have us dwell. We are now about to enter a new chapter in the life of Sri Ramakrishna, the beauty, grandeur, loftiness, and pathos of which will fascinate the readers as they follow step by step the progress of this eager aspirant from the early outpourings of his heart and devotion at the feet of the Divine Mother, through the period of his unquenchable thirst to see her, on to the consummation of his sadhana in the realization of God, and the establishment, or rather rediscovery, of his relation to him, a sublime achievement, equaled only by that of the other great ones of the world. We wish we might be able to express an infinitesimal part of his throbbing renunciation, tremendous sincerity, and passionate search for God. So great was his yearning for God that 12 strenuous years passed in a state of divine intoxication, during half of which period he did not close his eyes and sleep. Unconscious of hunger, thirst, or any of the cravings of the body, or of the things happening around him, Sri Ramakrishna, during that period of sadhana, was almost like a madman. Day after day, month after month, year after year, he was immersed in the depths of that intense spiritual fervor. Sri Ramakrishna was appointed priest of the Radha Govinda temple. Mothur found that his mode of worship was different from that of the ordinary Brahmins, and that he looked upon the image as the veritable representation of God and treated it as such. When he sat down to worship, a curtain of oblivion separated him from the outside world. He was totally unconscious of the presence of those who usually gathered to attend the services. Sometimes he would sit motionless for hours, being recalled with difficulty to ordinary consciousness. While uttering the various mantras, he could distinctly see those phenomena which to the ordinary priest were but phantoms of the imagination. Thus, while chanting the mystic syllable rang, which directed the priest to conceive of a wall of fire around him, Sri Ramakrishna really found himself in the midst of a circle of fire guarding himself and the place of worship from all evil influence. He could actually feel the mystic power called the Kundalini, or the coiled up, rushing from its place of rest at the lower extremity of the spinal column, along the channel of the Sushumna, to what the yogis call the Sahasrara, or the 1,000-petaled lotus of the brain, and could visualize it passing on its upward way through the 6 centers of the body in the spinal cord, turning the hanging buds of the lotuses into full-blown flowers. The radiant glow of his face at the time of worship, his deep concentration, and the atmosphere of purity about him suggested to the onlookers the idea that the very spirit of Brahmahood, as described in the sacred books, was being manifested there. None had ever seen such intensity of feeling and devotion. Sri Ramakrishna adapted himself to his new station and forgot everything else. Ramkumar was gratified, for it gave him time to direct his attention to the welfare of the family. Besides, he felt that his end was approaching, and if one of his brothers succeeded him, the future of the family would be assured. But he was troubled by Sri Ramakrishna's love for solitude and growing indifference to the world. He hoped that it was a passing mood, and that he would begin to take part in the festivities of the Kali temple, instead of passing his leisure hours in the thick groves of the temple garden, sitting silent under a tree far away from the bustle, or, worse still, taking long solitary walks in the quiet of the early morning or before dusk, along the banks of the Ganges. He resolved to teach him the elaborate procedure of the worship of Kali, so that, later, he might assume the task. As it was not considered advisable to undertake the worship of Shakti or Kali without being properly initiated, Sri Ramakrishna decided to be initiated. At this time, there was a Brahmin in Calcutta named Kinaram Bhattacharya, who was noted for his devotion and experience, and Sri Ramakrishna decided to accept him as guru. A day was fixed, and the ceremony took place. It is said that as soon as the sacred mantra was uttered in his ears, Sri Ramakrishna, overwhelmed with religious fervor, gave a shout and plunged into a deep concentration, which greatly astonished the guru. From this time on, Ramkumar asked his brother now and then to take over the worship of the Divine Mother, while he himself worshipped at the altar of Radha Govinda instead. Mathur noticed this and one day requested Sri Ramakrishna to take over the permanent worship of Kali. "Sir, I do not know the procedure of that worship," he replied. "So how can I perform this sacred task according to the injunctions of the Shastras?" But Mathur humbly said, "You do not require any Shastra code. Your great devotion and sincerity alone will satisfy the goddess. Whatever you offer at the feet of the Mother with love, she will accept. Because of your devotion, the Mother will surely manifest herself through this image." Sri Ramakrishna, touched at the implicit faith of Mathur, agreed, and Ramkumar was transferred to the temple of Radha Govinda. Ramkumar was aged now, and the sustained labor at the temple garden was telling on his health. He decided to go home for a change. Mathur agreed to engage Hriday for a few months during Ramkumar's absence, and the latter arranged to start home as soon as possible. But he was destined never to see his home or dear relatives again, for he breathed his last at a place a few miles north of Calcutta, where he had gone on urgent business. He had served in the Kali temple of Dakshineshwar for only a year. The death of Ramkumar left an indelible impression upon the mind of Sri Ramakrishna. He was so young at the time of his father's death that all his filial affection was given to his elder brother. His death, therefore, came as a great shock to him, for it occurred at a time when his mind was in a state of upheaval, when he was fast realizing the transitoriness of the phenomenal world, and all his energies were given to the search for something that was real and imperishable. Convinced that man could transcend all miseries and evils and reach immortality only by knowing the sweet and perennial fountain of all bliss, his yearning to realize God and the pangs of separation from him became inexpressible. While those about him were wasting time in all sorts of frivolity, he was burning day and night with this consuming thirst for God. It was at this time that he was asked to conduct the services of the Divine Mother. After his initiation, Kali became his favorite deity. Every day at the time of worship, he decorated her image with flowers and sandal paste. To him, it was not inert stone, but Mother herself. All who have seen it agree that the lovely figure, with its divine expression, is a rare piece of sculpture. The Mother wears a gorgeous Benares cloth and is decorated with precious ornaments from head to foot. From her neck hangs a garland of skulls, and round her waist is a girdle of human arms, made of gold. In her lower left hand, she holds a decapitated human head, also made of gold, and in the upper a sword. With her lower right hand, she offers boons to her devotees. With the upper is symbolized Abhaya, or fear nothing. The skulls and the sword represent her terrible side, and her right hand's offering boons and fearlessness the benignant side. She is both terrible and sweet like nature, alternately destroying and creating. This is the Mother whom Sri Ramakrishna worshipped, the preserver as well as the destroyer. But to him she was ever the affectionate mother, the repository of all blessedness and power, sweet, tender, and full of motherly solicitude, the mother who with loving care protects her devotees from harm. To her, he offered a wholehearted devotion, regarding her as the only true guide in darkness and confusion. So sensitive was he becoming that he was forced to avoid all contacts with so-called worldly people. He passed the quiet hours of the afternoon alone. At night, when everyone was asleep, he would arise and go out, returning after daybreak, with eyes swollen as though with much weeping, or showing the effects of prolonged meditation. To all inquiries as to where he had been, he gave evasive answers. Hriday determined to watch him and solve the mystery. The plot of land lying to the north of the temple, where Sri Ramakrishna passed long years in meditation and asceticism, now known as the Panchavati, was not then as it is now. It was a dense jungle of low, uneven land thickly grown with shrubs and prickly plants, where the sunshine scarcely ever penetrated. Its having been a graveyard kept people at a respectful distance, and none had ever dared to explore it. Sri Ramakrishna chose this place for his spiritual practices and used to spend his afternoons and nights in meditation in the shade of a large amalika tree which grew there. Hriday loved his uncle and took care of him day and night, like a devoted servant. Occasionally, he caught a glimpse of the workings of his mind, but for the most part, he shared the popular opinion that Sri Ramakrishna's strange actions were due to too intense devotion to God. So when to unmindfulness of food or drink or the comforts of the body was added the passing of whole nights without sleep, Hriday was much concerned and felt that he was justified in watching his uncle to find out where he went at night and how he spent his time. Knowing that opposition or protest was futile, he waited his opportunity, and one night, when Sri Ramakrishna left his room, he followed. What was his horror to see him entering the jungle? Hriday was afraid to follow him, so he remained at a distance and began to throw stones in order to frighten Sri Ramakrishna, but without success. The following morning, when questioned by Hriday as to what he did in the jungle, Sri Ramakrishna replied quietly, "There's a large amalika tree there, and under it I meditate on Kali. Such a place is highly suitable for meditation." Hriday was not satisfied with this explanation and continued to spy upon and throw stones at Sri Ramakrishna whenever he went into the jungle. Sri Ramakrishna made no remonstrance. Finding that intimidation was fruitless, Hriday gathered up his courage and determined to enter the jungle at dead of night to see for himself what was going on. He was startled to find his uncle without clothes or the sacred thread under the tree in deep meditation. In spite of a feeling of awe with which this sight inspired him, Hriday said to Sri Ramakrishna, "What is this, uncle? Why have you taken off your cloth and the sacred thread?" There was no response. It was as if he were addressing a statue. When Sri Ramakrishna returned to ordinary consciousness, Hriday repeated the question. "Why, don't you know?" Sri Ramakrishna replied, "That this is the way one should think of God, free of all ties? Since our very birth we have the eightfold fetters of hatred, shame, pedigree, culture, fear, fame, caste, and egoism. This sacred thread means that I am a Brahmin and therefore superior to all. When calling upon the mother, one has to set such ideas aside. So I have removed the holy thread, which I shall put on after I have finished meditation." Hriday listened and quietly left the place. Thus, the realization of God, the vision of the Divine Mother, became the one passion of Sri Ramakrishna. Strange was the method of worship of this most wonderful devotee. The singing of devotional songs composed by such devotees as Ram Prasad and Kamlakanta Bengal was one of its salient features. They seemed to open the floodgate of his heart, and he would weep profusely like a child sore at heart at the separation from its mother. "O mother, where art thou? Reveal thyself to me. Ram Prasad saw thee and obtained thy divine grace. Am I a wretch that thou dost not come to me? Pleasure, wealth, friends, enjoyments, I do not want any of these. I only desire to see thee, mother." Tears flowed continuously from his eyes. The day would pass. and when the peal of evening bells in the temple announced the close of day, he would become sadder still and cry, "Another day is spent in vain. Mother, for I have not seen thee another day of this short life is past, and I have not realized the truth." Sri Ramakrishna would often rub his face against the ground in his agony. His plaintive moans would attract crowds of people who whispered to one another, "Poor young man, has he really lost his mother?" His pathetic cries move one to tears. In another mood, he sit before the image of Kali and say to her, "Art thou true, mother, or is it all a fiction of the mind, mere poetry without any reality? If thou dost exist, why can I not see thee? Is religion then a fantasy, a mere castle in the air?" Scarcely would these words pass his lips when in a flash he would recollect the lives of Ramprasad and other devotees who actually saw God in this very life. She can't be a mere freak of the human imagination, the young worshipper would think. There are people who have actually seen her. Then why can't I see her? Life is passing away. One day is gone, followed by another never to return. Every day I'm drawing so much nearer to death. But where is my mother? The scriptures say that there is only one thing to be sought in this life, and that is God. Without him, life is unbearable, a mockery. When God is realized, life has a meaning. It is a pleasure, a veritable garden of ease. Therefore, in pursuit of God, sincere devotees renounce the world and sacrifice their lives. What is this life worth if I am to drag on a miserable existence from day to day without tapping that eternal source of immortality and bliss? Thoughts like these would only increase his longing and make him redouble his efforts to realize God. Referring to this tremendous thirst for God, Sri Ramakrishna would often say to his disciples later on, "Oh, what days of suffering I passed through. You can't imagine my agony at separation from mother. That was only natural. Suppose there is a bag of gold in a room and a thief in the next with only a thin partition between. Can he sleep peacefully? Will he not run about and try to force the wall to get the gold? Such was my state. I knew that the mother, full of infinite bliss, compared with which all earthly possessions were as nothing, was there, quite close to me. How could I be satisfied with anything else? I had to seek her. I became mad for her. What tremendous faith, what intense conviction that God alone is the source of all bliss. This it was that carried him through and sustained him in many bitter trials and afflictions. The philosopher's stone that turned his sufferings into the bright and shining gold of God consciousness. It is to faith such as this that the miracles in the spiritual history of the world in all countries are due. Without a teacher, guide, or helper, with no great knowledge of the scriptures, and even without passing through the prescribed forms of asceticism, Sri Ramakrishna carried everything before him by this adamantine faith and sincere yearning to realize God. He could no longer conduct the worship regularly. He would sit before the image like a stone. At one moment he behaved like a demented person. At the next he would cry like a child. While meditating in the course of worship, he would put a flower on his head and sit silent for a couple of hours, or while offering the food, he would gaze at the mother as if she were actually partaking of it. In the morning, he would pluck the flowers for garlands and spend hours in decorating the image. During the evening service, when performing arati before the goddess, he would lose all idea of time and forget to bring the ceremony to a close. His strange actions were beginning to attract the attention of the temple officials. He was ridiculed at first, but steady devotion ended by commanding respect and admiration, though some still regarded him as unbalanced. Martha was charmed. Sri Ramakrishna was perfectly indifferent to what people thought and directed all his energies to the realization of the goal he had set for himself. He took less food and slept very little. His chest and face were always flushed from excessive emotion, the eyes often bathed in tears. But he was not to be tossed much longer on the waves of despair and hope. One day, in his intense longing to see the mother, he cried, "Mother, why dost thou not listen to me? I have prayed long to thee. Thou didst bless Ramprasad. Why dost thou not bless me also by revealing thyself to me? when suddenly his desire was fulfilled. We shall describe this first vision of the Divine Mother in his own words. I was then suffering from excruciating pain because I had not been blessed with a vision of the Mother. I felt as if my heart were being squeezed like a wet towel. I was overpowered by a great restlessness and a fear that it might not be my lot to realize her in this life. I could not bear the separation any longer. Life did not seem worth living. Suddenly my eyes fell on the sword that was kept in the Mother's temple. Determined to put an end to my life, I jumped up like a madman and seized it, when suddenly the Blessed Mother revealed herself to me, and I fell unconscious on the floor. What happened after that externally, or how that day or the next passed, I do not know, but within me there was a steady flow of undiluted bliss altogether new, and I felt the presence of the Divine Mother. On another occasion, he gave the following description of the same experience. The buildings with their different parts, the temple, and all vanished from my sight, leaving no trace whatsoever, and in their stead was a limitless, infinite, effulgent ocean of consciousness or spirit. As far as the eye could reach, its shining billows were madly rushing towards me from all sides with a terrific noise to swallow me up. In the twinkling of an eye, they were on me and engulfed me completely. I was panting for breath. I was caught in the billows and fell down senseless. Whether or not he saw in this ocean of effulgence that blissful form of the Divine Mother which was so dear to his heart, he did not make clear. It is probable that he did, for as soon as he regained consciousness, he called aloud, "Mother! Mother!" From this time on, his constant prayer was that he might have a repetition of this vision. Sometimes his desire would become so intense that he would roll on the ground, crying, "Mother, be gracious unto me and reveal thyself once more." He would cry so bitterly that people gathered about him to see. "I scarcely realized their presence," the master afterwards said. "They looked more like shadows or painted pictures than real objects, and I did not feel the least abashed at displaying my feelings before them. But the moment I lost outward consciousness in a paroxysm of pain at separation from the Mother, I would find her standing before me in her matchless radiant form, granting boons to her devotees and bidding them be of good cheer. I used to see her smiling, talking, consoling, or teaching me in various ways. I hope you like this chapter. We need volunteers and sponsors to create content with even better quality and with more variety. If you wish to join this initiative as a volunteer or sponsor, please click the links given in description below. To help us reach more viewers, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to Biography Central. Thank you for your time. It means a lot. Namaste.